And now for our second movie review, Haunted Mansion. Moving to a new house can be scary, but Gabby and her son, Travis, discover that their new house is haunted with ghosts of residents past and decide to seek help in the form of a group of supernatural experts. With each twist and turn, the house reveals its secrets, and it's not about to leave those who enter it unchanged. Okay, Teresa, why did you choose this movie for our cinema community today?
I chose this movie because I actually like the Haunted Mansion ride at Disneyland. That is the first ride I remember hearing about from my brother. My brother, well, I have two brothers, but my middle brother is 4.5 years older than I am. He went to Disneyland when he was pretty young, and he came back talking about the Haunted Mansion. He actually had a Haunted Mansion coloring book that I could not color in. I think his exact words were, "Don't touch it, don't look at it," because it was on our community bookshelf. So, of course, I became intrigued. Got a little bit older, went to Disneyland. For me, it's funny because it was a ride, but when they said, hey, we're going to do a movie, because I remember the Eddie Murphy one back in 2003, a little less enthusiastic at that point. But to me, the Haunted Mansion feels more like a movie than a ride anyway. So when they said, hey, how do you ride in a house, right? It's just it's like, let's go through the spooky house. Oh, admittedly, it's a fun ride. But when they say, hey, it's a movie, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. They're going to go through the house. They're going to do something. People are going to talk about it. They're going to tell us the backstory. Trust me, you don't get a whole backstory in a coloring book. So I'm looking for this. Plus, it's a great summer movie. Well cast. Like the cast, actually. And I thought maybe it'll fill in some of the dots for me. Maybe it'll start to make a little bit more sense. So I was up and ready to go for this one. How about you?
I'm a huge Doom Buggy. It's a Haunted Mansion fan, for those of you who don't know.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? We're talking about Haunted Mansion. Dune Buggy.
It was named after one of the websites that used to have like fan pictures and stuff.
Oh my goodness. You're talking to my brother.
Oh yeah. No, yes. Totally. I'm one of those people that it's one of my auxiliary special interests. I'll actually go out of my way to find out interesting facts, stories, lore, all this kind of stuff with this ride. So I was really curious to see, especially after the Eddie Murphy story was such a big hit in certain circles, that I wanted to see if they would do it better. I also wanted to see if there was going to be kind of like a Ghostbusters conundrum, whether it was going to be more supernaturally focused versus more comedically focused, especially considering that at one point Guillermo del Toro was attached to this movie. And
wow.
Yeah, he's cool.
Well, then it really probably would have been dark and mysterious. And no, I could see him doing this. I could see him directing this.
But can you see Ryan Gosling in a Guillermo del Toro movie?
No, he's Spray on Ken. No, he's my beach Ken now. No, I
Wouldn't
can't
that
see
be wild though to see like?
I don't think it's Barba Mansion. I think it's Barbenheimer. I think you're confusing the two summer movies, Rebecca.
But if you think about it, in an alternate timeline, it is Barben Mansion.
Oh, it's Barben Mansion. Okay. That's a fair point though. So did it feel more Ghostbustery, or what did it feel like?
Actually, I was really pleasantly surprised about the humor. There was a lot of winks and nods to the ride. The production design was really cool. We spotlighted this in our short, but the makeup designer for this film actually used some practical effects when it came to the prosthetics. He put some UV paints in some of the silicone appliances as well as the makeup.
Oh, right. So it kind of, yes.
It kind of created that more spooky sense that you would see with some of the animatronics with the ride.
That's a good point. And I would say the effects were special. And you're right. Your knowledge base far exceeds mine when it comes to Haunted Mansion. And I know afterwards you'd made a comment, the bats.
Yes, there's one sequence where they go to another location that's not the mansion, but there's also still that very attentive love and care. And one of the little details that kind of got me excited that showed that the filmmakers really want to pay attention was the bats that are on like the little kind of the velvet rope that kind of separates some of the things are the same bats that you see when you go to the ride before you hop on a Doom Buggy.
Which is, well, okay, that makes sense. So And you noticed that. You'd said something about the wallpaper. I noticed, for me,
The wallpaper is iconic.
The wallpaper is, and then the pictures on the wall, I did recognize those, and I know your favorite. Yes.
The cat lady. The cat lady is still my favorite.
You're correct. And I saw her, and I thought, okay, Rebecca's going to appreciate
Even the
that.
chairs. They use some of the chairs that were in the ride if you pay attention in some of the certain sequences.
Well, and I think what's funny about it is, yes, I would miss some of those things. And maybe people in our cinema community have your knowledge base, or some have maybe more mine, which is more nostalgic but enjoyable. I didn't feel like it was wink, 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 or nod, 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 you need to know this. It just felt pretty seamless. So if I knew it, it was great. If I didn't know it, I could still enjoy the movie.
It's very much added flavor text.
That's a good way to put it. I appreciate that. That's good.
So if you see the text, you can kind of incorporate it into your enjoyment, and you don't have to know it like with Mom.
Sure. No. And I'm okay not knowing it, but I love knowing it.
Yeah.
Because as you said, I'll see it and I'll be like, oh, I know about that now.
There were a couple points where I was elbowing you during the movie, and I did explain it to you afterwards.
No, and I appreciate that, because if there's a wink and a nod, sometimes it's like, ooh, I feel kind of stupid. Maybe I don't know this. But if you're going, nudging me, I'm like, oh, pay attention to that. Rebecca will tell me about that later, which is so great. And for me, I think not only was the set design fabulous, and I love a good set design, the music was pretty good.
The music was really cool. Chris Bowers, who previously worked with Justin, the director, on Dear White People, also did the music for Chevalier, which I know you had discussed that you really like the arrangements
really like
for that.
The music for that. Yes. And what a variety.
Yes. And it really captured the spirit of New Orleans. The last Haunted Mansion movie, I was terrifically disappointed with. New Orleans seemed almost kind of like a throwaway gag. It's like, why is it here? It's New Orleans. And it just felt like more respectful to the New Orleans culture.
It did. It felt very, and even just out of the gate in the beginning, it really established this is New Orleans. Yes, I would agree with that. And I also think the screenplay was a pretty smart one.
It's very funny. The writer, Katie Dippold, also wrote for Parks and Rec. Okay. The other thing that most people would know Katie's work for is the Paul Feig Ghostbusters, as well as The Heat.
Oh, interesting. That I did. Okay, that I did.
And I know you like The Heat.
Yes, that's true. Okay, no, and I know we were talking about it, that there were some. It almost felt a little improvisational. Some of the lines that they said. The different actors or actresses. I don't know if that's the case, but it was funny. Just a few little poof.
The casting really bounced off each other really well.
It isn't. There are quite a few names that people would know. Correct.
That's correct.
There is. Oh, our buddy, right? Our buddy, the priest.
Oh yeah, Owen Wilson is in this. I was really excited to see LAKEITH Stanfield in this.
Yes.
I've enjoyed him ever since Sorry to Bother You.
Oh, we
and
saw that.
The Last Black Man in San Francisco. So I was really excited to see him kind of bring his humor.
Yes.
And his sense of emotional mapping to this.
Well, and both of those movies are fabulous. They're more indie movies, and they may not be widely accessible to many people. Hopefully they are. If you've seen them, then you know exactly what we're talking about. He's a great actor. And Chase Dillon, young man, wonderful acting.
We've been getting a lot of really good kid actors this year.
Agreed. And your buddy, Rosario Dawson.
Really
you
excited.
Like her?
I like her. She's cool.
Well, and there's Danny DeVito's in there.
Yes, I have a few friends in the cinema community who really get excited whenever Danny lights up a screen.
And correct. And we talked about Owen Wilson and our favorite little medium, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was fun. And so, sorry, Tiffany Haddish. Right?
Tiffany Haddish was. Tiffany Haddish was cool because she was playing Tiffany Haddish, but it wasn't obnoxious Tiffany Haddish.
And I think she has a range.
She does.
And
she's
I think funny.
But I also really like the fact that she did the serious character work without treating it like a joke.
And I think she has the capacity to do that. So for her to mesh the two, And I think that's probably a challenge. If you're extremely funny, which I'm not, but if I were to hypothetically be extremely funny, I think that would be my concern, is how can I play the straight part of the role? And I think she did well, and Jamie Lee Curtis, one of my favorites.
Took me a few minutes to realize it was Jamie Lee Curtis, but once I did, I was really excited to see her in it. Dan Levy also plays a small little cameo, as well as Winona Ryder does a small little pop-up part.
Yeah, I almost missed her, actually. And I think that's the part where there are so many good actors. The expectation, I think, in my mind for this movie was high, and really wondering, we had talked about it wasn't heavily publicized.
No.
We've seen only a few trailers for the movie. And we avoid spoilers.
Actively avoiding spoilers.
Actively.
And that was really hard for me because I wanted to see this movie as blind as I could go, because I have such an appreciation for the source material.
Correct. No, me as well. And I would say, yeah, the acting was pretty good and the screenplay was good. It came together really well, and it was much better, honestly, than I thought it was going to be.
I bumped up my initial rating about half a wing after seeing this movie. When I go into a movie, I'm not going to lie. There's a certain framework that I'm expecting it to hit.
Yes.
And if it hits above that, then it earns my esteem.
Well, and I think I agree with that. I think we would be not lying, but I think we would be a little bit on the edge of maybe not being truthful fully if we were to say, I have no thought, no expectation. Just as if we're talking about, I'm anticipating this movie. Already there's goodwill, or if a good director, good actors, actresses are attached to it, we already have a certain mindset of, it's going to be good.
And our goal is to view it through your eyes. We see the trailers. Maybe once in a while we'll find a promotional article like saying, hey, check this thing out.
Yes.
But for the most part, we try to go in blind.
So when we see the movie, we actively avoid spoilers for ourselves, but also for our cinema community, because we know there's so much joy and magic in going to the movies. And if you know exactly what's going to happen, sometimes that's taken away.
That's correct.
Not always, sure. In some movies you do know how it's going to end just because you may know the story. Maybe you've read the book. Maybe you know the historical figure that this is about. But if at all possible, to go in and have enjoyment. And for me, I think that helped me enjoy the movie more as well. Rebecca, the movie was PG-13, and any thoughts about that? Or
I think this is more like a PG-11, 12-ish. It's a good gateway horror movie. I know Dad in the Box specifically had mentioned that the person next to him had a couple incidents.
No, that man jumped out of his seat. That wasn't like a woo. I mean, that was a woo. Yeah, poor Dad's just like, whoa, hey.
I'm so glad I was sitting next to you.
Pretty easy to just, and you said kind of a horror movie. It wasn't graphic or gory, just to be real clear.
No, but it was definitely startling.
It was startling, and it could be unsettling and maybe scary. For younger kids, I would say it could be scary.
If your kids can handle the ride, they can handle this movie.
Oh, okay, that's fair. And it's a little over 2 hours.
A little bit over 2 hours, so it's a nice solid chunk of time.
Do we have any questions from the box?
Over the years, there's been much discussion of whether the Haunted Mansion movies should be more comedic or scary. What was the movie more of, and do you think it did it well?
I think this movie was definitely more comedic. I always associate the ride as being a little bit more scary, especially some of the attic scenes and the initial confrontation with the ghosts.
I would agree with that. I actually had thought perhaps it would be more scary. And understanding, right? I'm a 50-something and, boo. But it's not even that. It just was funny. There were a lot of little one-liners and little quips. But the theme overall to me was pretty serious. There was some talk of death and, beyond, spirits beyond. So
well, and we talked a lot about grief in October Sky. This movie brings up grief in a very adult way, how it lingers.
Correct. It's not, sounds terrible, one and done. Okay, moving on. It didn't have that feel to it. It had the respect that it deserved and what it would feel like to be someone in a grieving cycle or someone grieving.
It also drove a fair amount of the emotional plot going on too, and the development of the characters in this film.
Well, and part of the comedic value, and we had talked about it with the Cocoon Cast team, is part of the humor was they didn't do product placement per se, but they named products where they were from. And at first you think, wow, well, they're getting sponsored. Of course, it's a Disney Haunted Mansion movie.
There was a couple moments where I was convinced that they were getting money off of
Well,
this.
and the first time I thought, oh, that's hokey. And then the second time, your dad kind of nudged me and said, hey, that's kind of funny. They kind of threw that in. And then they did it a few more times and a few more times. And at that point, they can't be that oblivious. And then it was like, okay, now it's just kind of this running gag, and you
it's
start
kind
to
of
look
like making fun of people who do get
correct. And so I think there
placement.
was definitely a comedic element that balanced it well.
Be very curious to see if this gets released with a director's commentary at some point.
Yes, that would be the one to watch.
If that was intentional and kind of spoofs other horror movies where this happens.
That's what I'm wondering, if that was the intention at that point. First time I didn't get it. I thought, oh man, really? They're gonna and then it was like, and then nudge next to me, and then I'm like, oh yes, right. So that was helpful.
Especially considering the amount of product tie-ins with, say, Barbie.
Oh, shameless.
Oh my gosh.
Shameless. Apparently Mattel did not make an appearance in Haunted Mansion. It's that time for our moth rating. Flying. 1 to 5. Rebecca, what do you think? What's today?
I think today the Haunted Mansion deserves a 3. It's a nice family film, and it's a great bit of counter programming from the Barbenheimer onslaught.
Onslaught. Wow. Tell us how you really feel. Number one reason why you would give it a 3 moth rating.
It's well-rounded, and as I previously mentioned, it's a nice family-friendly film, so it's a bit more accessible than, say, some of the more mature themes of Barbie or Oppenheimer. So
Okay.
I think it fits where it fits.
Mm-hmm.
Disney's had trouble other than the tremendous good luck with Pirates of the Caribbean adapting some of their more obscure properties.
Well, and I honestly, I was between a 3 and a 3.5 a moth, and I would say it's a solid 3 for me also, in the respect that I was interested in seeing it. It was better than I thought it would be. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It didn't drag on too long, meaning 2 hours was about the cap. The acting was good, but I just can't seem to move past the 3 at this point.
Yeah, I had initially walked into this theater prepared to give it a 2 moth rating.
Sure. No, I understood, just based on the brief trailers, lack of, advertising, at least in our area, was pretty minimal. And it just had the potential to go so many different directions, and not all of them I think would have been engaging or interesting.
Even the structure of the advertising can sometimes tell you more about the movie than you'd like to know.
That is correct. And there were no spoilers in the trailer.
Thank you for watching this Cocoon Cast clip. This clip is taken from our weekly show, which airs on Saturdays.
If you enjoyed this video, you might click on the link or head over to our main movie channel and watch the entire video for more movie goodness. Thanks for watching, and remember, movies are better together.